those adjustments here on blue side.
Yeah, I think it was also a situation where even if, say, the coin flips the other way, Owner does get that kill, they snowball early, I think they would have ran into a lot of the same issues, particularly with how good JDG are team fighting. T1 also seeming to note that the Wukong not going to be available to Kanavi, has used it throughout the entirety of playoffs with great efficiency, and the Annie not going to give over here to T1.
Yeah, this is what I was calling for towards the end of the last game, because of course Annie has just been so incredibly strong in the hands of both of these mid laners. Knight not having played it thus far, but definitely proving that it's something that should be removed from him as well. Ahri going to be taken off the board. Of course, Knight, phenomenal Ahri player. As the Maokai left up and available and will be locked away. The Cassante being the final ban is kind of curious, as 369 is going to hover some stuff before he picks a champion.
Yeah, very big swap away here. We saw Owner on the Kindred, wasn't really able to get anything done. Early play didn't work out. The Lamp's Respite wasn't really able to be used. And I think that Maokai, very similar to what we saw previously with the Braum and with the Gragas, makes it really, really easy and straightforward to play around your AD carry.
Now, I'm really interested. Is JDG going to try to T1, with the red side Scion here? Because they do have it. Will they try to look for that draft setup? And if T1 sees it coming, will they have their own response prepared, right? Because this is a strategy that they're obviously very familiar with.
And the Zyra Khan here, I like Zyra Khan as a combo, specifically when it's into a Fellows. I think in Jinx, the range advantage plays such a large part, and it's not like Ruler is going to have to actually walk up, right? Particularly when we get to the later stage in the game, once we see the rapid fire cannon come through, we've seen Zayas really struggle with actually getting in range.
Yeah, just take a train.
Yeah.
Pretty much is how you're supposed to do it. Maokai will provide some space here for T1. I actually really like Maokai at the moment. I think him and Bai are absolutely far and away the best junglers at this tournament so far. But let's have a look at what these next round of bans are going to be, because like you say, the T1 bot lane camp strategy that 369 could employ is certainly looming, and there is the Gwen ban. This is the way I like teams to play into the Scion, is to pick something that can carry from top lane, that can benefit from that empty lane in the early stages.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I'm such a fan of the Gwen ban, because I think not only can you win in that 1v1, but you can actually bring that power to a 5v5, unlike some of the other picks that are actually considered to be good carry picks against Scion, which I do think things like the Fiora are much more difficult to actually 5v5 on, right? Sure, you can create that individual advantage, but can you actually turn that into a 5v5 advantage where the games are decided these days?
Wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being the Gnar. Personally, I think we've seen a few Camille hovers. I actually, particularly when you have Rakan and you already have frontline, do think that's the type of champion that can both benefit from having a couple of minutes, in lane, without being matched by the Scion, but hasn't come through so far. And we also do know, particularly with the Jace already banned away, the Cannon and the Gnar are kind of Zeus's mainstays. Expected to see him pick up either of those here.
Yeah, if it was Bin, I would be like, ban the Jax away as well, but I think the Jace in Zeus's case makes a lot of sense. It's final ban from T1 to come through. They are thinking about this one for quite some time. See what they are going to get rid of. I expect another jungler just to thin that pool out ever further, but no, it will be Knight's Syndra. An understandable ban away. You can see Knight pretty happy about the respect being given.
I mean, that is his signature pick, right? This guy is unreal on the Syndra.
Oh, we've seen Bel'Veth hover a whole bunch of times, so I'm not expecting zigging and zagging. Just a bit of Arctic assaulting, I guess, as Ruler is hovering the Sejuani, and we'll lock that one away. So not as exciting, I guess, but still, I like Bristle, so it's fine.
It also does set up for those potential, mid lane kind of aggressive picks, to some of the melee picks that can come through. Gonna be interesting to see where Faker takes us, because the only pick that is up and available that he's played so far already is the Nautilus, right? The Cassante's gone, the Annie is gone. Tristana mid would be interesting. RT1 going to be going towards double marksman again. We do know that this can be flexed towards top. I think it was Doran actually played Tristana top as well, so there is potential for that to be flexed around, but you definitely are expecting it to be mid lane. And I'll be really interested to see what the answer is there from Knight, because I don't think Tristana is always going to have the easiest time, especially when it is blind.
If it's like Tristana Gragas here though, or I guess on theoretically flex. You're gonna have to go back a few years to really find it, but it is gonna be on locked away. Zeus has been putting a bunch of time into the Tristana top as well, like you were talking about, so theoretically Faker can be on the Ornn in the mid lane if he would like to, but all night, okay, considering the Cassiopeia for now.
Well, this is actually a really tough matchup for Tristana. It can be very difficult to actually win out in this. Cassio can just harass the Tristana very heavily in the 1v1. You can win a lot of the all-ins. If Tristana's jumping in with the rocket jump, it's very easy to actually just drop the miasma on her, drop the Q on her, and you can win out in some of those all-ins. So it's also a pick that scales incredibly well. Range can be the difficulty for Cassio. It's how are you going to play it out in the 5v5 where there's a lot of engage, there's a lot of CC from that T1 side. But I think this is a great answer. This is something I've been seeing a lot of players go to in solo queue as an answer to that Trist mid. So excited to see Knight bring it out and want to see how he can perform.
Also puts a lot more attention towards the mid lane. I do think both Tristana and Cassio can really struggle when put behind, right, when you can't hit kind of damage thresholds that you're looking for. And even though it has been a very bot side focused meta, it still kind of pales in comparison to how much attention we saw junglers give when it was the AD support, right? When it was basically dive, full-on 3v3s for the first few minutes of the games. So both Owner and Kanavi, I think, going to be looking to try and get the mid laners ahead. Top lane, you know, it's tank versus tank. I think we might see the science trap, but outside of that, don't expect there to go anything crazy to go down towards there.
You also have to remember that, you know, Miasma as a follow-up to other CC, you know, like if you can hit someone with a Sejuani ultimate, you can drop the W onto someone like the Trist, onto someone like the Rakan, the Maokai. All these champions cannot actually get out of that very easily. You can even disrupt the Ornn ultimate. You know, if he actually goes for the R, you can drop the Miasma on him as he's looking to R2. He can't actually redirect. So there's a lot of annoying little interactions there. I think Faker's job in this lane is really to not interact with the Cassio. It's actually to just try to avoid all his Qs and just hard shove and just try to scale and try to not fight that guy. Because I don't think it's going to go well for Faker if they are trading back and forth.
No, exactly right. He wants to just fire minion waves into the Cassiopeia as often as possible. Let's see how it goes as we are onto the Rift here for game number 2. T1 now on the blue side. JDG on red. Gumayusi going to spot them out, give them some feathers there. And 369 already where a Scion belongs in the early game, and that is bottom lane very close to a turret.
You can see the response, though, from T1. They are going to be potentially moving up into this topside jungle. So where will they start? T1 obviously having done this strategy themselves. Really curious to see what the response is going to be. Obviously, the early information is so important.
Yeah, Faker still hasn't seen any of JDG there, as all of them just sitting in this one brush. I really hope that Faker decides that this is the time where he doesn't want to venture into the river to ward. But I'm still nervous. Okay, spots all of them out, walking towards that bottom side red buff.
T1 are positioning like they want to fight this. Faker is moving down. Maokai is actually starting on Wolf, so are they going to try to harass here and try to delay?
This is very interesting. They spot them out immediately. Ward goes over. They clear it out as Missing is just trying to keep them at bay. And T1 know exactly what this strategy is going to be, but JDG playing it out pretty comfortably so far.
Well, also, Guma used his Ghost there, right? And into specifically Jinx and Lulu, actually fighting for early prio was going to be extremely hard.
Look at Owner. He's coming. So they want to try to position with 4 members bot to try to actually harass here and stop this. Faker is coming down.
Yeah, they have full information. There is the grand entrance. The knockback's going to come through. The flashes to come out there as Owner's going to get stunned up with the permafrost, but it's first blood going to Faker, immediately answered by Knight here. Both mid laners walk out 1-0. Oh, Kanavi maybe in a little bit of trouble, but no, it's just going to be a feather or two as now Knight is going to come on over to Faker here. These twin fangs just layering on top of Faker. Knight is going to go down, and it's going to be an extra added assist for Missing on top of it somehow.
Oh, and with no flash on either mid laner now, that mid lane, I expect to see more attention towards her. Also do note, T1, yes, they're able to get a kill, but Ruler was able to get full experience, whereas the bot lane for T1 gonna be put on the back foot right from the get-go, right? Guma and Keria were, I think, missing at the very least the first, maybe a wave and a half worth of experience here, where Ruler was just shoving without a care in the world.
Absolutely, and Guma had to use his potion for this fight as well, which is very problematic. But T1's answer is clearly just, we're just going to fight. They're actually just going to battle for this. Owner started Wolves, passed down, gets level 2, comes to actually fight. And yes, they do get that first kill, but Knight gets a kill of his own. And then this is what I'm talking about. If you connect on the Q, he gets that early level 2. There's just nothing Faker can do in this situation. He's on an E-Star. He has no flash. The Q follows. He flashes through, lands that last Twin Fang. So 2 kills early to the Cassio. Knight going to be feeling really happy. Yes, it is 2 kills on Faker's side. But again, I do think I really favor the Cassio in this 1v1, and if Cassio can get those scaling items in quick, looks like he's building towards a Catalyst. You know, if you can get that Roa really early, have that stacking up, it's going to become problematic.
Accelerated game potentially for both of these mid laners. Of course, Tristana does like to get to those spikes a little bit earlier, as well as now 369 does still have flash. He's going to use it right now. Is slowed down by all of these saplings. Bramble smash to push him back in. Kanavi's going to come up 50% health. Decent Q there. He's going to knock up one. Is now T1. They're desperate to try and find one of these. Permafrost is going to keep Owner at bay, but Faker is moving in now. There's the immediate flash out as well. Double knock up from Zeus as they take the first one, and Faker is going to look to try and take down 369. He's knocked up though as Zeus tanked the turret for as long as he could, and Faker's gonna get it with the explosive charge.
It starts out as a wet noodle fight, and then Faker shows up, and then you say, hey, this isn't fair.
How dare you bring a gun to our wet noodle fight?
What a roam though from Faker, getting up towards topside there, changing everything, because if Faker was not coming, JDG just can continue to fight that 2v2, and I think they win it. So instead, it is a 2-for-0 clean for T1 on that top side, thanks to the roam for Faker, who gets another kill. And missing is just being so annoying here. He couldn't break the shield there, unfortunately, not quite enough AP.
Yep, Zyra can't OP at getting back, as it turns out. And check this out one more time, Chronicler.
And it starts off, 369 is able to flash the initial knock-up from Zeus, and this early on in particular, cooldowns are still very high, right? But the moment that Kanavi arrives, you do see T1 really needs to respect Permafrost in these early skirmishes, can get a lot done, but because Owner is able to weave out, get away, they can prolong the fight up until Faker shows up, and this knock-up from Zeus comes up huge.
Yeah, pixels for 369 there. You saw him thinking that he was just out of range, charging that Q. Could have been a huge difference maker.
Yeah, I mean, that was really close to being able to hold on there for 369. He lands the knockup.
Relief.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could tell you're feeling stressed. You already lost one game. If you start to fall behind in game two, you really start getting nervous here. But JDG down to this bottom side, trying to take first dragon here once again. It's a very early one. We're only 5.5 in. So they're kind of bucking the trends we've seen somewhat in this tournament, and they are really heavy prioritizing these early dragons.
Also want to highlight, although we might get a attempt at a steal here. Looks like Missing is going to keep them off. Want to highlight that Missing being able to cancel Guma and Keria there was actually really big, because they were actually caught up mostly when it comes to CS. They've been able to kind of equalize. They were backing on the cannon wave, but then with Missing getting the first interrupt, it meant that Ruler had the opportunity to shove out the subsequent wave, and a lot more minions were denied, and now as a result, Ruler back up in the CS department.
Yep, also half a level in lead as well, and at this particular moment in time, that is going to be a big deal. No Featherstorm available, but Super Mega Death Rocket is going to be there. 369 tidying up some minions underneath this turret here, and as the dust is settling, T1 do move away with a slight gold advantage, but JDG shouldn't be too worried about it for now. As, yeah, okay, that's quite aggressive positioning there from Zeus, as in goes Faker. Knight taking a bit of damage, but offering a whole bunch back there as well, even with Owner in the area.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the problem, is that when you jump in, he just drops the miasma on you, you get slowed up, it's a guaranteed Q generally from there, and as long as Cassio has that poison on you, you're always going to win on the trades with the Twin Fangs. And you're...
Oh dear, okay, Kanavi. I'm going to get Faker to rocket jump over that wall. Permafrost was in the air as well, but he's just going to be able to walk it out. No flash required for this one. T1 do rotate out of that bottom lane to try and potentially defend.
Yeah, Big Dar Zeus was also already halfway through the river, right? So he's been able to keep pressure on 369 thanks to that gank that was found by T1 as Kanavi with the invade.
Yeah, immediately they do spot him out with that sapling there though, and looks like Owner is going to be able to secure it. There it is. Wins that smite fight and will be able to walk away with his Bramble back intact.
But they lose Prio on bot side, right? They lose control of their bot side jungle, and now it's 4-man bot here. Knight does have flash, and he has ulti. He could look over the wall.
Yeah, there it is. Not going to be able to get the snares. Good knock-up to come through from Keria there, but he's going to tank up the turret for as long as he needs to, and now Keria, a sitting duck underneath this turret. The poison is going to connect. There's the permafrost, and Ruler gets hand-delivered a kill.
Beautifully done there from JDG. That bot jungle pressure, yes, it did not give them the red buff, but they push out T1. They get the 4-man play on bot side. They get the 2-for-0. Faker's going to get some plates back mid, going to be able to deny some minions, but it is a bigger victory on that bottom side because it is getting Ruler ahead of Gumayushi once again.
And crucially, the only one that has teleport here and can join the play is Zeus, and he's not able to. It's still laning versus 369. 369. So after the invade, not necessarily working out, the immediate rotation coming through. And as you point out, with no prio and no ultimates available, there's no way for T1's bot lane to survive this.
Exactly. I mean, Faker had already been chunked earlier, right, previous to that play. As that one got a little bit dicey, but T1 do strike back on the top side. They take the Herald away. You know, it all comes back to that initial play where Kanavi, you know, is getting that chunk on Faker, pushing him down in the jungle. Then they can't take the 2v2 because they're down HP. Then they can't defend the bot side dive because they lose control of the jungle. And it's this play that you really love to see, and it's been signature here at MSI. Getting control of mid is not really always about getting your mid laner ahead. It's about being able to transition that to bot.
Yeah, the really cool thing is it all comes from that level 1 play as well, because Ruler has that slight experience lead. Gumayusi's being denied, and then he's level 5 underneath that turret instead of having the Feather Storm. It is just so cool that everything is sort of coming back to these plays. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to comprehend, and I just can't quite get there, Isaac.
I do want to highlight that I do think that one of the big advantages that we see for Faker, there's a lot of champions. Nautilus is an example where if your opposing mid laner roams and you don't get any, and you get time alone in lane, it doesn't mean anything. With the Herald going over and the mid lane already being this low, might be an opportunity for T1 to take that with the Herald when the next Drake rolls around. But they do need to actually make that work, because the last few team fights, as we saw in the previous game, definitely all going the way of the JDG.
Well, and again, they're faced with similar issues to last time. You know, they do have some AP from the Maokai, but an AP Maokai is not going to force a Scion to build magic resist. It's going to be an armor stacking Scion here. And Cassio becomes a tank once you actually do get to those later stages. You know, you do get Gargoyle Stoneplate generally as a 4th item. People are going Rylai's, you know, they're getting Roa, and they're grabbing, you know, they're tier stacking that up. So you have the tier shield, you have the Roa for HP, you get towards Gargoyles, you actually have some real tankiness. I've even seen against AD heavy comps like this, some Cassios go towards Frozen Heart, which can also be pretty effective. So there is armor stacking capabilities on multiple members on the JDG side.
And I think Chronica and I have exactly the same idea, because you don't see the Sunfire Cape.
And Ornn.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Ornn is a mage, assassin.
He does do damage, but he's still not forcing any MR, my friends.
Well, that's the whole point. You don't know how much damage he does. No one's going to build the MR.
We're going to check the numbers at the end on that Sunfire Cape, Azale.
We absolutely will.
We'll check the numbers on the Cassio as well. We'll see which one's out.
Hey, ho, I don't know about that.
Yeah, all jokes aside, I think you're absolutely right.
Stick in your boot.
Certainly far more balanced is the JDG composition. Faker's Draw a Bead is going to take a few levels to get the range up, but does mean that he is going to have that range to go toe-to-toe with Ruler. Zeus just doing some alcove gaming. Like to see it. 369 just going to walk towards him with his shield activated. Look at this. Just so much gameplay here towards his top side, but it is going to be Zeus finding a few angles. He's not quite brittle. That's when it gets a bit exciting in the Ornn matchup. Instead, he's just hitting him with his small hammer. As JDG now looking for this dragon. Cloud going to be the second one. We'll see what the soul is after this. As Kanavi, Glacial Prison going to come down there. T1 standing their ground, only 50% health taken there from Ona, but they do get them out of the river.
It's actually so important, though. 369 is trying to stay on top of Zeus because Zeus has TP and he does not. So if they lose track of Zeus, JDG will have to give up this dragon. And I think that's the situation that they're going to find themselves facing with. I don't think they're going to be willing to take a potential 4v5 if Zeus is able to join with that Ornn ulti.
And now it is going to be the Rift Herald, completely denied in this mid lane. T1 do use it to get some control of the river, but I don't know whether that's exactly worth it.
Yeah, I think T1 was trying to make a play towards Dragon, but then Ruler and Missing were able to get Prio bot side, so it's not like Owner and Faker can just run towards Dragon and start it, because JDG would be would have more than enough time to respond. So the one other thing outside of some plays for Faker that T1 got completely negated here by JDG.
Well, T1 are going to be able to make their way towards this Cloud Drake here. No one denies T1 Cloud Drakes, in my experience, and I do keep track of Cloud Drakes a little more than others. And they are going to collect that one here. So it is going to be Infernal Soul as well. This is going to be huge.
And I'm really looking forward to the first actual 5v5, because we haven't really seen, we saw in the previous game, whoever, or JDG winning the first 5v5 kind of snowballed it from there. Both compositions with the amount of hard engage and front-to-back team fight that they have available, definitely a big threat. I do think Faker needs to get to a Mythic as soon as possible and try to accelerate him more, because I do think that Tristana is one of the picks where if you do get ahead of the curve, right, if you're able to pick up an early LDR, you can actually shred from front line, but you need to not just take this lead as Kraken Slayer comes through, but build upon it further. And I think that's why that Herald mid was such a costly opportunity, because if you do actually get like maybe a couple of E-autos and a charge in the turret, you can take that down.
Yeah, absolutely. And extending that gold lead, I do think is really important. JDG, I don't really feel like there's any pressure on them to really get anything done. You know, take the fights that look very good to you. But when you're playing Cassio Jinx with multiple frontliners and an Enchanter support, you're down to go 50 minutes. You're down to play this as long as T1 want to. We'll have to see, you know, if T1 is going to be able to push the pace of the game, or, you know, if I'm wrong and the physical damage is not really going to matter. If they can just outplay in the team fights, utilize Keria with this explosive engage, you know, find that follow-up from Zeus, and really eliminate one of these DPS right off the bat, and then all of a sudden, the damage doesn't really matter.
Because I think that's the biggest lead. If we do go to late game, if we do go to stalemates, T1's ability to start off fights is a lot stronger than JDG's. Now, of course, JDG's counter-engage, we've talked about a lot.
So
they
good.
are really good at ebb and flow, but the fact that T1 can start fights might come back and be important as we get to the later stages, particularly with objectives being very evenly spread thus far.
Absolutely. I mean, they have really all the good go buttons this game. Yes, there is Sejuani ult, yes, there is Sion ult, but it's not nearly as reliable as something like Keria or a Flash Twisted Advance or even that Orin ulti.
Yeah,
but
not to mention
counter
Nature's Grasp, which is pretty
Right.
ridiculous.
Oh, great
Now they're going to
buffer.
go for the point-blank ulti, but yeah, exactly right. The buffer is going to be there. Nature's Grasp going to come down. Miasma causing a few issues, but it's not going to be the greatest. Petrifying Gaze is now Knight taking so much damage here from Faker. Oh my goodness, the AoE. Ruler taking matters into his own hands here. Still has Super Mega Death Rocket available, and T1 are going to back away. In the meantime, though, 369's chilling on the top side of the map, just smacking down a turret.
Yep, someone's going to have to respond to that, but it is going to be T1 moving into the top side river. They're going to be starting up this Herald, utilize the chunk they got on Knight, utilize the ulti down from him and Kanavi to be able to start it up. And that's really all thanks to Faker. It's a great buffer on that ulti. Is able to jump out, then get a chunk down on Knight. He doesn't get stunned up by that Cassio ult. That's a good attempt at a steal from Ruler, but T1 well aware of it. And will be able to extend their gold lead.
He was aiming for Zeus there to win out that top lane matchup. Knows how important that is.
High five.
So, yep, you can understand that one. Knight here towards his bottom side, though, is just taking this out of turret. In the meantime, and this is what we've been seeing sort of all tournament long by the Eastern teams, is being able to know exactly where to be to maximize the amount of gold earned on these maps. And Knight continuing to do so here on this bottom side.
Do know, if there's no crossbuff from T1, like, you're going to give over first turret blood, going to be a huge influx of gold here with no real counterplay, right? You see 369 holding the top wave. There isn't really an opportunity to dive a Sion at this point in the game. Ruler and Missing holding down mid lane. As a result, gold now, 16 minutes, basically dead even.
Yeah, dead even, but again, you know, it is that gold right where you want it for JDG. Yeah. It is Ruler 1,000 gold up on Kumiyushi. Slight advantage there for Faker of about 400 gold, but the real edge is on the top side for T1, which is not going to be as impactful here, having it on the Ornn, having it on the Maokai.
Yep, big spike as well with the Rylai's and the Rod of Ages now stacking, looking towards that Seraph's Embrace for Knight. He's going to get more and more powerful as all these synergistic items come in together. Kumiyushi feeling a little bit in danger here in this mid lane, and I don't blame him with Kanavi waiting in the wings.
And that's why Cassio is so frustrating to play against at times, because it is so difficult to burst this champion down because you can build so much HP. You get that Seraphs, you get the shield from that as well as they're going for the engage.
In they go. Yeah, the quickness going to charm up. Kanavi does land the ultimate, but not going to really get too much done as 369 is going to teleport in. And JDG going to be able to get out of there.
That's both sums off Ruler, though, and that is massive here. We'll see if T1 are going to be able to find any sort of a fight.
30 seconds on this Infernal Drake. Zeus slinks back into Fog of War. The rest of the 4 T1 members in this mid lane trying to hold on. As JDG move on in, 369 just trying to be a little bit tricky here with what remains of the brush here around the red buff. Infernal Rift does make things a little bit bare.
And JDG also doesn't want to just give T1 free access, right? If you go all in on that Dragon, T1 with Herald can possibly get 2 turrets right from the get-go, particularly with the pushing power they have as Herald comes down.
Yeah, T1 still trying to hold on to that bot side river, but JDG now 5 members strong, want to stop Shirley from getting towards this turret, but there are so many ultimates flying towards JDG. 369 can have to flash immediately to get himself out of the way. The turret is going to fall, but the stun is just massive. Low health bars absolutely everywhere as Kanavi's going to be the one to take down Owner in the end. And it's 2 kills for JDG. Kumiyushi trying to kite back, and Faker has to rocket jump as well. Still damage available and low health bars on JDG, but they lose no one.
As the T1 frontline step forward, so does Knight, and he's just shredding through Zeus on that top side of the fight. It's 2 for 0. Sure, T1 do get that turret, But it's JDG looking for the dragon. Can T1 find an in?
3 versus 5. I don't know about this one.
Risky.
As Gumushi and Faker, fair bit of damage like we said, as they're not going to be able to take this dragon. JDG, now can they find the fight as Featherstorm goes in a direction I don't think he was intending, but does avoid the Glacial Prison.
And it is JDG picking up the win there. T1, all they get is a mid lane turret. I think really big there, the second activation of Zeus' ultimate did get interrupted,
Was
right?
it the miasma that,
no,
the
it's,
knockouts?
it's 369, yeah. On the Cyan, able to cancel that. If they can chain another set of Riddle procs, I think they might get through the front line. But instead, as you point out, Owner and Zeus are just getting demolished, whereas the backline, look at Ruler and Knight, completely untouched in these fights. They get to output as much damage as they want.
And that's the power of the miasma. You know, Zeus steps forward, all of a sudden there's a miasma behind you. You cannot walk into the miasma as Faker and Guma to actually just get damage out. There's no way you can walk through that. So there's just this massive zones of control created by the miasma on one side, the Scion as well as the Sejuani on the other side, and they're just experts at making space for Ruler and Knight here to really maximize damage.
Yeah, Carrier is possibly in a bit of danger here, but he's going to be able to slink away. Fair bit of mobility on the Rakan, so maybe he's going to be all right. Owner takes his blue buff.
One highlight as well, Faker also clearly realizing we need a way to chew through these front lines. Yes, we have Demonic Embrace, but as you highlighted, Azil, that's never going to be enough damage to actually get through the JDG front line. So that Lord Dominic's, that'll be something that T1 is going to rely upon if they do actually want to win these front-to-back team fights.
And then we'll see, you know, can Faker actually have enough time in these fights to free fire and knock through those? Because there is going to be threat of that counter engage. There is going to be Knight that's in the mix, you know, this mid-range champion who's going to be looking to fire on you anytime you are attacking his tanks.
Here on the bottom side, once again, it is just going to be 369 and Zeus throwing abilities at one another. So a perfect time to take stock. It's 20 minutes. And last time around, we were very denied when it comes to the Baron attempts. It took multiple minutes before we did get there. This time around, Purple Worm is going to spawn. Faker in the area, but JDG are paying it the most attention right now. Faker has Rocket Jump. He's going to be fine to get out of here if JDG do come on over, and gives Baron a bit of a parting gift.
Something we also haven't mentioned, in addition to all the other stuff, is that Ruler actually got a call early, right? And Guma never did. Guma wasn't able. That's a lot of extra gold that is in the pocket of Ruler in addition to all the other attention that he has gotten. And it's like you were saying earlier, Zoe, and I think you can really see it there in the previous fight, is where you want the goal to be, right? Because if you have a little bit more DPS, then maybe the fight goes the other way. The moment that Tristana starts resetting, that you can actually play further forward, T1 might have an angle, but as long as JDG gets to control the ebb and flow, and 369 and Kanavi doing such a good job of providing that reliable front line.
I mean, the fights are really about hitting that critical mass, or all of a sudden the enemy front line can no longer hold up, especially when you're playing against enchanters. It's actually so critically important to be able to overwhelm the front line with damage, because it's so difficult to punch through a Scion and a Sejuani, let alone when there's a Lulu shielding them up and ulting them and so on behind.
Well, so far, things are sort of calming down on the Rift for the moment. We are moving into podcast territory. Absolutely love it. As Knight and Faker just moving their lane towards the top side to try and ping-pong some of these waves. We're back down here where the brawling never stops. So if you're worried about action and things like this, you just always look towards this bottom lane, as London understands this is where the action is.
Atlas, is it a brawl if they're always fighting?
Absolutely.
Still
it's
is?
just a constant
continuous,
brawl.
yeah.
I mean, at some point, if that's your continuous state, I don't know if it still qualifies.
It's just existence?
Yeah.
All right. So
that's just life.
But their
existence
existence is
there on the
brawling.
bottom side.
Yeah.
I think it's still brawling, though, even if it is
I just
Give the top laners something. Come on, man.
hey, they get
They're
to
locked
play.
on tanks.
They get to feel good about supporting their friends.
Well, every
That's
time
more
I see
something.
No top laners feel good about that. They don't want to support their friends. They want their friends to support them.
It's very true. As I just look at it as more value for the Sunfire Cape.
True.
For what we're going to refer to towards the end of the game. That's what I'm
The problem is, though, Scion also has a Sunfire Cape, so you've been countered.
I know, well, this is the point. It's all Sunfire Cape, right? So damage
all
on
the
both
way
sides.
down.
The whole
I'm
time?
psyched about it, yeah.
You see Kanavi's inventory?
Oh, there we go. Oh, no. Will it just be Sunfire diff?
Oh, but see, the thing is, it's not really a fair fight because Zeus can upgrade his Sunfire Cape.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tough.
Didn't think about that one,
Tough
did you?
calculation.
That's true. Never really looked at it as teleport's going to come forward. Okay, T1 going to look for some action here as Ona throws down the ultimate. Zeus going to do the same thing, flashes forward to find the Ram Ruler. Still going to be alive though. He has the wild growth available and now he's going to start those shots. Zeus going to be able to get himself out of there as the flash from Missing is going to get him to relative safety. As in goes Carrier, they knock up 369. Miasma going to try to be avoiding Vega, but immediately he's polymorphed and he's taken down. The knockups come through Knight. He's going to be punished and now it's Gumayuki that rips them to shreds. It's a quadra kill and he gets denied by Owner on the Penta, but they'll be happy with a win in the team fight.
And critical mass
This could be
has been
game.
reached. They're going to keep on pushing.
Yeah, could just be the end here as the inhibitor turret going to be the first one to go down. Owner's throwing presence into this mid lane and we should have known. We saw this, it's around the 25-minute mark. They beat Gen G exactly the same way. Look for the first Nexus turret here as T1, they still have so much damage.
Take a TP.
Yeah, he can just come immediately towards this one, and I don't think there's going to be much of an option. JDG, 4 of them are up and available. Mega Death Rocket is going to be blocked. As Gumayuki trying to get those autos in. Can they keep it alive? Faker is going to turn up, and there it is. Game 2 goes to T1.
What an ending out of nowhere. T1 go crazy in the mid lane. The engage from Carrier was massive. As it initially looked like JDG were going to be able to disengage that fight. We're going to be able to stabilize,
That
get back to their
polymorph,
base.
right?
Yeah, that polymorph on Faker as he jumped in. Looked like it could have been the game changer there in that fight, but just out of nowhere, Guma has been untouched. Carrier goes in, Guma goes wild, gets a quadra, and T1 just bet it all on ending the game right there.
Guess what? They didn't even need a Baron.
Oh no, they've been unlocked. We don't even need to go to the Baron flips. But no, it's so reminiscent to what we saw, right? You slow the game down and then you just find your angle. Last time it was Gen G engaging into them. This time it was Carrier just finding that angle. Still, man, it was neck and neck for so very long. Even halfway through that team fight, it was looking okay. But as soon as there is that slight advantage, and the double 80 carry is certainly working out well here for T1.
Absolutely. I mean, the leak became a waterfall, like everything all at once. Just
Yeah, sometimes
through.
the tank just explodes.